Today we're going to talk about passive voice, and I'm going to give you a brief review of what passive voice is and hopefully help you understand it a little bit better, okay? Because a lot of students get it confused. A lot of language learners struggle. They have questions like, what is passive voice? How do I use it? And when do I use it? Why do I need it? Okay, well, the truth is you don't need it. It's an extra voice. It's an extra style. Voice is like style or aspect, a way of looking at an idea, a way of looking at a description, a way of looking at an action. Okay? So that's what I want to talk about today because someone did ask me about this. Someone sent me this question, what is passive and how do we use it? So I thought that's a great topic. So let's get into that, right? So I'm just going to get my raincoat off because the rain has stopped, which is lovely. And I am going to take my hat off because the rain has stopped. So there's no reason to have a hat. Now I feel more active. It's hard to move around in a raincoat and a hat. I can't be active. Without them, I feel energetic. I can play baseball, right? I can, what else can I do here? I can, oh gosh, I can play basketball. Great. What else can I do? Geez. Well, maybe I shouldn't do those. Maybe I shouldn't play sports, but I can play games like this one. I'm not sure what this is called, but it's a game where you have to throw it up and try to land it like that. Okay? I can spend hours doing that. It's really hard. But I feel active, energetic, right? Action. That's what active means. Okay, so let's start with that. How do we describe an action in the active voice? Well, let's say I want to play baseball. Now, it's hard to play baseball in here, but I want you to imagine something, okay? I want you to imagine this picture, okay? Paul, me, is going to do this action. What is that action? Tell me in the comment, in the chat box. What is this action? Give me the verb, just the verb. What verb should I use to describe this? Paul blanks. Okay, we have an answer. Throw. Okay, Paul, throw. Good. Great action verb, right? It's an action verb. When you see that verb, it sends a picture to your mind, right? It makes a picture. All ideas in language create a picture in the listener or the reader if it's written. Okay? Let's imagine the movie. Just what you saw. Paul is the subject. Now maybe I can't. Not a great artist. But there's Paul. Okay? And Paul is the subject of the sentence and he does that action. He moves. The arm moves, right? Your body moves. The ball moves. Paul is the subject, the main part of the picture. We're talking about Paul and what he did. Paul threw, let's use past tense just to keep it simple. Paul threw the ball. So we have a simple sentence. We have a subject, Paul. We have an action verb, threw. And we have an object, the ball, which was affected by the verb. When Paul threw, Paul made the action. What's affected? The action made the ball move, right? Right now the ball is just sitting there. Simple baseball. It's doing nothing. But if I make an action, the ball follows and moves, okay? So let's write the sentence. Paul threw, past tense, the ball. Okay, let's see what we have here. Let me get some labels here. Paul threw the ball, right? Paul threw the ball. This is a simple but a perfect active sentence. Okay? It's active. We have a subject doing an action and the object responds. The object is affected. How is it affected? Well, because of the action, the ball moves. It does something. It moves. Energy, action. That's what we mean by active sentence. The subject does an action and the object is affected. Okay, so far so good? Active sentence. Most sentences we use are active. Why? Because they create a picture for us that we can understand about somebody doing something and then something happening. The ball moves. We can even add to that. We could say Paul threw the ball to his friend. To his friend. At the park. We could make the sentence longer, but this is the heart of the sentence. This is the clause, okay? This is the clause. A clause is made of a subject and a verb, and it has a complete idea. It's a simple idea, but it's complete. It's a clause, and it's an active clause. Now, I'm going to answer the question, how we make passive. I'm going to answer that question first, okay? How do we make passive? Where is that question? And then I'll answer the question, what is a passive? Okay, so we're going to make a passive so we know that's what's coming. And remember, this is not a verb tense. Okay, this is simple past tense, but you can take any active tense and change it into passive. Any of them. Present perfect, simple past, simple present, future. You can take any of them and make them passive because it's not really about the tense. It's about the position of the subject and the object. Okay, here's how you make a passive. You switch subject and object. Okay? Subject is Paul, the main part of the picture. Just like when I do this. What do you see most here? You see Paul and a little bit of the ball. But we're going to move that. We're going to move the subject to this position. Okay? So now, do I have another one? Maybe I don't. Now, the subject is here. Okay? Paul. And we're going to move the ball to the front position. And the front position of a sentence has a special power. It's the subject. So it's the main focus of the picture in our mind. Okay? It's the main visual focus. It's the thing we're imagining. It's the thing we're looking at. That's definitely a picture of Paul in our mind when we say Paul threw the ball. But now we're starting with the ball. So now the ball is the main focus. The ball, blank, Paul. So now we have the object in the front position, formerly the subject position. What do we do with the verb? Well, if we just use the same verb, watch what happens. The ball threw Paul. Is that possible? That's a little weird. First of all, the ball cannot throw Paul. The ball has no arms. And the action of throw is made by the human arm, right? And the body. The ball does not have arms. So the ball cannot throw Paul. Second problem is, even if it had arms, like, I don't know, let me find an arm here. Even if it had arms, okay, there's a tiny little arm, right? Even if the ball had arms, I'm pretty heavy. This ball now it has an arm, it's not going to be able to throw me. It's not strong enough and I'm too heavy, okay? So it's not going to work for the ball. The ball cannot throw Paul. Not in this universe. Maybe in an animated cartoon. The ball can't throw Paul. So this doesn't work when we make a passive. We have to do something else. And here's what we do. We're going to use the same verb, but we have to change the form. So we're going to use the past participle. Not simple past. English verbs have three forms. Base form, throw, simple past, threw, and past participle, or PP, and that is thrown. Okay, the ball thrown Paul. But now we still have sort of an active structure. The ball thrown Paul. And we know the ball can't throw me. So we need a helping verb. And we're going to use the be verb. Now, we started with past tense. It could be any tense. It could be Paul throws the ball. Paul has thrown the ball. Doesn't matter. We come down here. We use past participle, or verb number 3, whatever you've been taught, and we add the be verb, but the be verb must be the same tense we started with, okay, which is was. The ball was thrown. Sorry, I'm just going to create some space here. The ball was thrown, and then we're going to use the particle preposition by. Okay? The ball was thrown by Paul. That's passive. The ball was thrown. The ball was thrown by Paul. That's a very simple passive sentence. Okay? The ball was thrown by Paul. Now that's a very different meaning than that. It's the same action, but it's backwards, right? And why? It's because the front position is different. The main focus is not Paul, it's the ball. So if we draw the picture in our mind of the passive structure, what's the main focus? What is the subject? Well, it's the ball. Right? Now we're expressing the idea that the ball is the most important focus, not Paul. Paul's the subject of that idea, but here the ball is now the subject of this idea. And what happened to the ball is the important idea. What happened to this poor ball? Well, it was thrown by Paul. So we know Paul threw it. So he's still in the idea. So maybe his hand. That's a terrible hand, but right? So he's still part of the idea, but a very small part of the idea. He's no longer the important part of the idea. The ball was thrown by Paul. Now here's a little trick. Well, let's stop for a minute. This is the passive. Sorry, Guy is asking a question here. Why not is? Okay. As I said, Guy, our original sentence was simple past tense. Paul threw. Therefore, in a passive structure, the be verb has to express the same tense. If this was future, this would be will be. If this was present perfect, has thrown, this would be, what would it be? Has been thrown. Okay? This has to express the tense, the be verb. This is not going to change tense. This is going to be past participle. If you have future, present perfect, simple past, or simple present, doesn't matter. This is going to stay the same. This has to express the tense. Okay? If we said, Paul throws the ball in the active sentence, when we change it, yes, we would change to is, because that's simple present and that's simple present. Okay? So that's why gi. But in this example, let's just stay with simple past. Okay. The ball was thrown by Paul. So this is a passive sentence, and it lacks energy because the ball is not doing the action. The action comes from Paul to the ball, but now the structure is backwards, so it lacks energy. There's no action happening. That's why we call it passive. If children are running around, we say they're active. If they're sitting down watching TV, they're passive. No energy, no movement. This no longer has the same energy. So why would we use it? This goes to the question why. Why change a sentence to passive? Well, there's a few reasons. One reason is now you can focus on the ball. So remember, sentences happen in a conversation. What if someone says, hey, what happened to my ball? Where is my ball? They're asking about the ball. They're not asking about Paul, the teacher. They're asking about their ball. My friend comes in, he says, where's the ball? Oh, the ball. That's going to be the focus of my answer. If someone says, hey, what did teacher Paul do? Well, that's the answer because that's the focus, right? So it depends what you want to focus on, what you want to emphasize. Paul or the ball? The subject or the object? What are you talking about? What are you asking about? That's a big difference, right? Someone says, hey, what did Paul do? Oh, Paul threw the ball. Hey, where's my ball? I haven't seen my ball. What happened to my ball? Well, the ball was thrown by Paul. It's across the street because Paul can really throw. Okay, so that's one reason to use passive, to shift the focus from the subject to the object. Here's another one. When you make a passive, you don't really need this anymore. You can cut that off in a passive structure, right? The ball was thrown, period. What happened to the ball? Oh, it was thrown. Or maybe you want to say it was thrown across the street. So if my friend says, where's the ball? And you say, the ball was thrown across the street. Now he knows he has to go over the street and get the ball. It's over there. He's not asking about Paul or who threw it. He's not asking who. He's saying, what happened to my ball? The ball was thrown. By who? We don't care. We want to know about the ball. That's really powerful. Think about that. If you don't need the subject over here, that's another reason for passive to be used, right? What happens when you don't know who did something? If you don't know the subject, but you know what happened, use a passive. For example, how many times have you watched a mystery movie and the police come to the scene of a crime and there's a dead body, right? Remember our quiz. Number 5. Oops. The detective found the body of a man who had been murdered, right? They found the body The body is the object. The body was found, or had been murdered. The body was found. The body had been murdered. By who? We don't know. The police don't know. That's why they're there. The police arrived to the crime scene to investigate the body and look for evidence that will help them find the subject. So they can say, the body, the man, right? They find the body, the man was murdered. The man was murdered. The detective arrives on the scene. Who did it? We don't know. They do some analysis, they look at the evidence, then they decide, oh, the man was murdered by Bob. Bob somebody. The man was murdered by Bob. That can take months, sometimes years, to find out who the murderer is. Murder investigations can take a long time. They can be quick, but usually they take a long time. A lot of evidence has to be investigated. Fortunately, though, for you, grammar can be investigated every Friday at 4 p.m. on this live stream. Much faster. But that's the grammar a detective would use. The man was murdered. They use passive because they don't know who the subject is. So when you don't know who the subject is, we can use passive. For example, when I was a kid, I was kind of clumsy and I broke stuff around the house. My mother would come home and she'd say, "Who broke the table?" I didn't want to say it was me, so maybe I would use passive and say, "Oh, Mom, the table was broken." The table was broken. By who? I don't know. So that's another way we can use passive. We can use passive when we don't know who the subject is, or when we want to hide the subject. Who wants to hide the subject? Who wants to avoid responsibility? Well, I'll tell you who. Politicians. Politicians don't want to say, "I did that," if it's bad. If something good happens in your country, the politicians say, "I'm responsible for that. I increased the economy." But if the economy goes down, they don't say, "Yeah, I decreased the economy." The politician says, "Yeah, gosh, the economy. The economy was decreased." They use a passive so that they don't have to put themselves in the responsibility position, which is the subject. Okay? So when do we use it? We use it when we want to avoid responsibility, right? The economy was decreased. I don't know, just happened. I don't know by whom. The economy increased. I increased the economy. That's an active sentence. I did the action. I'm the hero of the country. We also use passive when we don't know who the subject is. When the detectives first investigate the crime, they don't know who the murderer is. They just say the man was murdered, period. When we want to focus on the object, when we don't really care who threw the ball, we care what happened to it. And by the way, this is very common in academics. If you're writing academic papers, let's imagine you have a group of researchers, okay? And the researchers are researching a virus, COVID-19. At the start of the paper, you list the researchers' names, so we know who did it. We don't want to repeat their names 1,000 times in a paper. So passive is often used to just focus on what the research study did, not who did it. We know who did it, the team of researchers. So you'll see language like that in academic papers. First, the virus was examined by Bob, Paul, Susie, and Cheryl. Next, the molecule was identified by Paul, Bob, Cheryl, they don't want to repeat who did it. Just use passive. First, the virus was examined closely. Next, the molecule was identified, right? So passive is very useful in academic writing when you're focusing on what happened in a research experiment or study, okay? Those are the main reasons to use passive. Here's my tip. If you don't need the passive, if you don't have one of these reasons, use active. It's energetic, especially if you're writing and telling a story. For novelists and fiction writers, 99% of their sentences are active because they're telling a story about characters who did stuff, characters who do actions in a story, okay? So most of the time in a story, look at your favorite novel and you'll see a lot of active sentences. You will not see a lot of passive. If you read an academic paper, you will see a lot of passive, okay? Now, do you guys have any questions about passive before we move on? Any ideas? So I see a lot of attempts at making the passive. Okay, let's see. The ball through by Paul. The ball is through by Paul. The ball is throw by Paul. Ball is throwing by Paul. So I really appreciate that. You're trying to figure it out. But the key is using the past participle. So maybe you haven't learned this yet, but English verbs have 3 forms. Base form, throw, simple past, through, and past participle form. In this case, it's thrown, okay? Like eat, ate, eaten, right? And you do need to learn past participle because it's used in passive. It's also used in present perfect. For example, in our quiz, we saw number 4. She has been promoted. Okay, so if you look at the sentence, promoted is the past participle of promote. It's also the same form as simple past, promoted. This is why verbs are crazy. But it's also present perfect, so we need has. But we always need a be verb for passive, so we have been. It can be tricky, for sure. But my point is, you have to learn your past participles, your PPs, in English grammar, okay? Because it's used in passive. It's also used in present perfect. I have eaten an apple. You don't know when, but I have eaten it. I have that experience. That's present perfect. Eaten is the past participle. All verbs have 3 forms. Sometimes it's the same word, unfortunately. That makes it tricky. Sometimes it's irregular and changes. Sometimes it's a strange form. This is an irregular verb, so we have throw, through, and thrown. We don't have throwed, right? So you just have to learn these things. It takes time, but that's the key to this. And as Guy mentioned, when you have the active sentence, whatever verb tense that is, it's the be verb that has to express that tense. Okay, because the past participle is the same if it's simple past, present perfect. Like if we made this sentence into all forms, all verb tense forms, it would be Paul throws the ball is thrown, Paul threw the ball was thrown. If this were future, let's say Paul will throw the ball, this would be the ball will be thrown. That's future. The ball is going to be, Paul is going to throw the ball. This would be the ball is going to be thrown. If this were present perfect, Paul has thrown the ball. This would be the ball has been thrown by Paul. Okay, so the tense is expressed by the be verb. I hope that answers the question about passive that somebody asked earlier in the week. So let me just catch up here with anything I've missed. Do you guys have any questions about this? I don't see any. So Chris is saying I use too many passive forms. Yeah, the truth is, Chris, if you don't need to use it, don't. Right? It's not necessary. It has specific functions. Again, those functions are if you want to focus on the object rather than the doer of the action. If you don't know who the doer of the action is, if you don't know who the subject is, you have to use passive, right? What happened to my ball? Oh, the ball was thrown. What happened to the table? Oh, the table was broken. What happened to the man on the ground? He's dead. Oh, the man was murdered. By who? We don't know. You can't, in this case, you can't use active. You can't say, well, you can say a murderer murdered the man, but who's the murderer? We don't know. So you're going to hear passive. And finally, if you want to avoid responsibility, because it's the subject who does the action, Paul threw, so Paul is responsible for the ball. So if you want to avoid responsibility, like politicians often do, passive. In fact, if you watch the news tomorrow or read the news, you'll see passive all over the place because politicians love doing passive speeches because politicians don't want to take responsibility for negative things. They only want to take responsibility for positive things. I lowered taxes. Imagine if you're in a country where taxes keep going up, like my country. The politician has to face the nation and say, unfortunately, folks, taxes were increased. Yeah, you did it. You increased the taxes. That's not what they say, though. They say the taxes were increased today by 4%. Oh, yeah? Who? Who did that? No politician's going to say, I increased taxes, because they know that's going to be on video and put all over social media. Politicians are very careful with their language. Okay, this is a good question. So the question here is, when do we add been? Okay, let me just clear the board. Now, if you look carefully, been is the be verb, right? Be, been. And every verb, including be verb, has three forms, right? Base form, be. Simple past, was. And past participle, been. So that's the past participle of the be verb. Be, base form, simple past was, past participle been. But it's just the be verb. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. Now, when do we need it? Well, let's rewrite this. It's going to create a little space here, and then we'll redraw this. So over here we have active, and we have passive. Now, okay, let's say Paul throws the ball and now he's finished. And now he throws the ball across the street and now he's watching it. Right? Paul is watching the ball. The action is finished. It's in the past. How do we describe that action, that idea? We use present perfect for actions that are in the past, but they are connected or they affect the present. Why is Paul holding his hand? Why is that present affected like that? Why? Well, something happened. Paul has thrown. Paul has thrown the ball. Present, perfect. Now I'm just going to get rid of those. Present, perfect. Some of you know that grammar. We've talked about it on this show before. And what I like to remind everyone is the word perfect in grammar means finished, completed. In other words, it means past. Perfect in grammar doesn't mean beautiful or awesome. It means past. So what does this grammar really mean? It means present and past. In the present, Paul is looking across the street. Why? Because in the past, he did this action, and now he's looking for the ball as it flies across the street. So the past action affects the present. That's present perfect. Okay? Now, can we make that into a passive? Absolutely. Totally we can. Like I said before, it doesn't matter what tense you use, it can become a passive. Passive is not tense. But we have to think about tense. So, remember what we do. We switch the subject. So we know it's by Paul. We bring the object to the front position, the ball. We know we need the past participle, right? All passive needs the past participle. So that's coming down. Oops. Okay? That's the past participle. We also know that we need the be verb, right? We need the be verb. Passive is made of be verb plus past participle. But if we want to express present perfect meaning, we also need the auxiliary verb that expresses the present. Present perfect. If we want to keep that verb tense, meaning, we have to bring has down here with us. Okay? Now that's going to express the tense. It's the same tense. The be verb is now going to express the perfect element, right? And we're going to use been. So for present perfect, we need to use the be verb in past participle. So now what do we have? We have present perfect in a passive structure. The ball has been thrown by Paul. Right? The ball, hey, what happened to the ball? The ball has been thrown by Paul. And because it's a passive, we don't have to say this subject. We can cut it if we want. Or if we don't know who threw the ball. If you just walk down the street and you see a ball flying in the air, you can say, hey, what happened to the ball? Well, clearly the ball has been thrown. And what if you don't know who did it? You just see a ball in the air. Oh, the ball has been thrown by someone. I don't know who. Right? It's like the detective seeing the body. The man has been murdered. By whom? I don't know. So the ball has been thrown. That's when we use the be verb in past participle. So present, perfect, passive. What's cool about grammar is the name of the grammar tells you how many parts. Here we just have present perfect. 1, 2, 1, 2. Present perfect in the past participle form. 2 pieces, 2 words in the name. This one's called present perfect passive, or passive present perfect. 3 words. Present perfect passive. 1, 2, 3. Okay? So that's when you need the be verb in a passive in past participle. And the same would be true for past perfect. Paul had thrown the ball. The ball had been thrown. Same thing. Okay? Any questions other than that, guys? So Guy, you're right. This is the passive version. The ball has been thrown. And if that were past perfect, Paul had thrown the ball when he fell down, whatever the second action is, then it would be the ball had been thrown. Yeah. Good. Any other questions about passive, guys? Or any other questions about grammar? We have a little bit of time left. If you have any other grammar questions, we could move on to a different topic question. Any ideas? Any questions? I'm going to get some water from my Grammar Detective mug, which you can purchase along with a variety of merchandise, including t-shirts, hoodies, caps, cell phone case covers, bookmarks, book covers, lots of products at this QR code. 2-sided, fridge magnets, all kinds of merchandise here. And the money goes to supporting the show, because this show costs money to produce. If you miss the show, you can always watch the recordings on the YouTube channel, and you can find it by scanning right here. You can watch all the episodes there. And if you're feeling generous and you want to donate some money, however small, $1, $2, $1,000 to support the show, you can go to Buy Me a Coffee and support us there. You don't have to, of course. For now, this is a free show. It will be moving to a paid membership platform in the coming months, okay? So right now the show is free, but eventually it's going to cost about $1 or $2 a month to see the show and to participate, okay? Because it does cost a lot of money to produce this show. Streaming platforms, cameras, batteries, lighting, it all adds up. So it will be moving to a paid service quite soon. You can also support the show at patreon.com. There's our QR code for the Patreon page. Anything you can contribute and offer is welcome. At Patreon, there are 4 or 5 different levels of support that you can offer. So check that out. But soon, the show will be moving to Patreon, and it will be members only, okay? By soon, I mean probably November or December, or worst case scenario in January in the new year, okay? But the only place you'll be able to see the show will be on Patreon. It's becoming like a membership platform. So members who support the show get access to it and other features as well. By the way, including when you join the Patreon membership, In addition to the live stream every Friday, once a month we will have a Zoom group where you can join me and some of the other friends of the show, the other members, and just an open conversation club on Zoom. Now, one of our members, Chris Derbovin, she participated in the Zoom conversation club a couple of years back when we had it. It's coming back, Chris, to the Patreon membership group. So if you want to stay in touch and join the membership group, be able to have Zoom conversations with myself and others, please go to Patreon and sign up soon, okay? I'm trying to make the show and the membership as affordable as possible. And the lowest membership level is $2 a month, Canadian. So we're not talking about $1 million membership here. It's pretty cheap, I think. Okay, any questions, guys? Yes, Chris has been a supporter and friend of the show for the last 4 years. She's one of my very first viewers, Chris, in Belgium, in Europe. So I really appreciate all the support you've shown the show, Chris. You are definitely our #1 grammar gumshoe. And Chris will have full access to all the membership benefits when we move to the platform in the near future. So follow Chris's lead and support the show. Everyone loves free content, but the truth is, for a teacher like me, this costs a lot of money to bring you. And, you know, around the world, costs go up. I live in a very expensive country, and the costs in Canada for everything, internet, camera batteries, my microphone batteries, lighting cost, the streaming platform, everything costs money, and the costs have gone up. So in the near future, I will be moving everything into a membership platform. So if you enjoy the show, if you want to continue working together with me to improve your English, you'll have to move to the membership site. This show will no longer be available for free on YouTube. Jody Awad, I like the mug. Thank you, Jody. What country are you watching from? We actually have several different mugs. Okay, we have the Grammar Detective mug, and we have English Weirdness mugs. For those of you who are new to the program, English Weirdness is my long-form video series, and it's available on the YouTube channel. English Weirdness is a series I make with my students, and it features little dramas, little acted out scenarios of communication problems, grammar problems. It includes my investigation of that grammar problem. We have animated elements, we have music, and we really dig into some of the grammar problems that are really common, but they're complicated, right? So this is a 30-minute episode. Each episode is 30 minutes, and it features myself and my students acting in little scenarios, animations. But if you really want to understand topics like present perfect, this is how you need to do it, because these are complicated grammar things. And we also have these products like t-shirts, right? We have these t-shirts you can get on the product page. We have different colors: black, yellow, blue, pink. We have men's sizes and shapes, women's sizes and shapes. We have the pink label. We have the yellow caution tape, the police tape version, Hardboiled English Live. All these products are available at the same QR code we have here. Get your Grammar Detective products. What else can I show you? Maybe I don't have them here, but we have cell phone case covers, hooded sweatshirts. I don't have one handy, but we have a nice little notebook. If you're in school, we have a notebook with all the logos on it. So something to think about. The products, I don't make don't make these products and design them so that I can make millions of dollars to buy a Ferrari. The money goes to supporting the show and making it possible to bring to you. So you get a nice product, and the show gets the support it needs to continue. Okay, so something to think about. Okay, guys, well, I think I've talked about passive enough. So I think perhaps we should close for the night. I want you guys to think about grammar this week and think about all the different things that confuse you. I always see your great questions here. If there are topics that really bother you, really confuse you, I want you to connect with me on social media. All my links are down in the description box. Send me your question. And you can also send me a video clip of you asking the question. Just get your cell phone and say, "Hi, Teacher Paul, I have a question." And then you can send that question over to my email address, hardboiledenglish6@gmail.com. Or if you're connected with me on social media, WhatsApp, Messenger, you can send the video clip through there. And what's cool about that is that I can make a little video introducing the question like we've done in the past with some of our other viewers. I'll give you an example here in a moment. I'll bring it up. But this is what I'll do if you send me a video clip. I'll make a little question intro like this that will introduce the question that we can share with the cram. So I'm not going to answer this question. We did this on a previous show, but here's an example of what I will do if you send me a video clip.
Hi, Teacher Paul. This is Leonie.
This is Kenta.
I have a question for you. I know it's okay to say, do you mind taking my picture with the CN Tower in the background or with the Rogers Center, with the Eden Center? But why can't I say with the Yorkdale Mall? Or what about Niagara Falls? Can I say with the Niagara Falls in the background?
Mr. Paul, please help us solve this English mystery.
So thank you, Kenta and Yomi, for that video clip. They just made a simple question into a video, less than 1 minute, please. They sent it to me, and then I made that little video clip, and then on the show, answered the question on the board. So it's a really fun way to participate. So if you guys want to participate, send me your grammar questions in a video. Okay? We have Jonas joining us from Morocco, right, Jonas? Internet problems. We all hate those. I appreciate that, Jonas. I know you're an eager learner of English, and I appreciate your interest in grammar. You know, a lot of learners either don't like grammar or can't understand it, so they dislike it. I understand that, but it's important. It's the structure of a language. So it is important for you to be able to use it well to express your ideas. So it is worth working on, even if you have had bad experiences with grammar, perhaps in your school. So please don't give up on your grammar. Join me every week and we'll work on it together, and we can get you into a better understanding of grammar so that you can control it and you can use grammar to express your ideas, right? That's what this is all about. These are two different ideas. Now, they're not different tenses. We have the same action that we're describing, but in two different voices, right? That's why we call it active voice or passive voice. Two different ways or two different views of the same action. In both cases, a guy named Paul threw a ball, but we can describe it two different ways, and emphasize two different meanings. But you can't do that if you only know how to make an active sentence. So having more tools like this, different voices, different grammar structures, allows you to communicate ideas slightly differently, more precisely. Communicate exactly what's in your thinking. Because I'm pretty sure you can do this in your language, right? But if you can't do it in English, then you're stuck. You're hitting a wall where you're limited by English. I don't want you to be limited by English. I want you to have English as a tool to express your ideas and communicate yourself in the world. Because we need to communicate with each other. That's how we make this world better, right? And English happens to be a one way we can do that. So I would encourage you, don't give up on grammar, even if it has been trouble for you in the past, okay? Keep going with it. And I'll be here to help you. A lot of English teachers don't like teaching grammar. They prefer pronunciation or reading and writing or listening. I happen to be one of those strange English teachers who loves grammar. I'm not trying to tell you that grammar is the most important thing. I'm not saying that. It's one of the things that is important. Grammar, listening, reading, writing, speaking, pronunciation. It's all important. I happen to be a teacher who likes explaining grammar. Not everyone does. So I believe I can help you. I can help you with other stuff, but there are great pronunciation teachers. There are great IELTS teachers. You know some of them, like Robin and American Mike. There are great pronunciation teachers. There are great reading teachers. I want to help you with your grammar, okay? So let's keep grammar fun. Let's keep it interesting. Let's keep it mysterious, because it is mysterious. English grammar is very mysterious. It doesn't follow its own rules, right? English grammar is irregular. You get a rule and then you get an exception, right? You get one kind of sentence and then you get another kind of sentence describing the same action, two different ways. That can be confusing. I want to help you with all that. So, Hard-Boiled English Live, this is where we do that. This is year 4 for this show. I've been streaming this show live for the last 4 years. And I've enjoyed it. I've met so many people around the world, helped them with grammar, hopefully, answered their questions. And I want to do that for you. So I see some of the new faces and names here. And I can't thank you enough for joining the show. Precise grammar gives precise ideas. It's important when it comes to academic writing and speaking. Eunice, it's important for all communication because of this. If you cannot use grammar precisely, you can't express precise ideas. The things you say will not match the things you think. And you won't be able to communicate, even informally with your friends, right? So there's always a place for precise grammar because it gives you precise communication. And that's what we want. That's the goal of communication. We don't want to spend 20 minutes asking our friend to throw the ball. You know, if we don't use grammar correctly, it might take 20 minutes to communicate that idea to each other because we're not using the right grammar. We might get all confused. We don't want to do that. We want to say things once, clearly, right? And the person understands us. Or that person says something clearly with good grammar and we understand it. Or we can read something, anything, and we can understand it because we understand the grammar that's structuring that idea, right? Grammar is everywhere in language. So if you have friends who think, oh, I don't want to learn grammar, it's too hard, there's a good chance they will never really develop their English. There's a good chance of that. Anyways, folks, I think it's time for me to go. So I'm going to say good night. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining the live stream, participating, I want you to think of your questions. I want you to send me video questions. I want you guys to participate. You're part of this show. You're the reason I do this show. I don't do this to be famous. I'm actually a pretty shy person. I don't want to be in front of the camera, but I have some knowledge to share with you. I have some ability with grammar I want to share with you. I want to help you. So, tell your friends about Hardboiled English Live. Share the YouTube channel with your friends. Share the link. Let's get people learning grammar better. Okay? I'm going to say goodnight. Until the next time I see you again, I want you to stay healthy. Healthy is very important to me. I want you to keep learning English. I want you to keep thinking of your grammar questions. Send them to me or save them up for next Friday and ask them on the show. And until I see you next time, I want you all to stay cool.